We're welcoming you all to our second webinar here. Looking forward to having a chat, seeing everyone join us, which is fantastic. And today we're going to be talking about the platform engineering hype cycle and around where we're going with the trough of disillusionment and how to traverse it effectively. My name's Abby Bangser. I'm a principal engineer here at Centasso, as well as a CNCF ambassador and team topologies advocate. I'm super excited that today I'm with you all in the learning mode, and I'm going to be facilitating Daniel and Kat talking more on this topic. And I'll introduce both of them in a minute, but first, I think it'd be really great to talk more about what we're going to learn here today as we talk about this hype cycle. So today we're going to be looking at a few key topics. The first thing that we're going to be talking about here is that trough of disillusionment, and particularly the fact that the Gartner Hype Cycle from late 2023 and 2024 is showing that it's a cautionary tale. This is where we're headed and what that means. Then we're going to be talking about some of the key challenges that if we're effective in managing them, we'll be effective in getting through this phase of platform engineering. More specifically, we're going to be looking at how to remove roadblocks for developers and why that's so key. We're going to be looking at why codifying and sharing organizational policies is a really big indicator of success. And finally, we're going to be taking another look back at the idea of platform decay, which we spoke about in the previous webinar, and why this is something that is going to be a key deliverable from platforms over these next few years as we traverse. As we talk about often, the fact that your platform is another piece of software and it's a product, and treating it like a product is one of the ways in which we can combat some of these challenges and get through this trough of disillusionment. More specifically, means that your users are able to access your platform as a service, so they are made autonomous to be successful. That there is automation around those processes, even when there are reasons to include human manual sign off, making those things a part of the automation and visible and traceable is key. And that the ability to operate effectively moving forward and having fleet management of the parts of your platform, capabilities on your platform is key to long-term success. Before we get into some of those really big learnings and we hear more from Kat and Daniel here, I want to set the scene about what entering this trough of disillusionment means. So here we are with the hype cycle that is released by Gartner, and you can see that platform engineering is very much well within that peak of inflated expectations. And we're seeing that 80% of software engineers see platform engineering as a team that they want to establish by 2026, if not already. And it's a key strategic trend. And this is backed up by some of the amazing work done on the State of DevOps report. We're seeing 65% of organizations are continuing to put in important resources and ongoing investment into their platform engineering. But we see that after this peak of inflated expectations, we do enter this trough before we get to productivity. And Mark O'Neill from Gartner is cautioning that the trough is coming, but we may have a little bit of time left before we hit it because we do still have so much opportunity to grow the expectations around platform engineering because it's such an effective and powerful mindset and idea. But just because the industry may see a little bit of a delay until we hit that trough doesn't mean we're not starting to see some of the indicators. And those indicators are coming up in some of the forums along the internet. People are asking questions. They're having failures and challenges that seem surprising when they're seeing so much positive news around platform engineering. And one of the key indicators here was mentioned by Paula Kennedy about that idea of build it and they will come. And Mark called that out as something he's been seeing as a trend, which is that platform engineering has so much opportunity and so much potential that organizations and engineers believe that just by building a platform and engaging in platform engineering, that will solve everything. And what we're starting to realize is that while this has a lot of potential, it requires a connection to the business and a connection to your users to really see that benefit. And that's where we're starting to hit. So to get through this trough and to have success with a platform, the key is to make sure to have clear goals and always be targeting them. As a business, moving faster, reducing risk, and increasing efficiency are evergreen goals. These are things that your organization is always looking to do and prioritize. Depending on where your organization is today, one of these may resonate more deeply with you. So you may be thinking about going faster as a key deliverable. And this is where that everything is a service mentality, where your users are unblocked and autonomous, able to be successful and deliver value. This may be a key driving force for your platform engagement. Separately, you may be looking at risk as a key reason to invest in your platform, seeing a lot of manual processes that are creating unsustainable ways of working and unable to handle some of these security risks and things that are coming out. And so that may be a reason to invest in platforms. Or you may already have some effective platform engineering aspects, but you're seeing that the growing cost of just business as usual work is starting to catch up with you. So increasing efficiency on how to manage and scale your platform offerings as a fleet is becoming a key deliverable. But in any of these events, what we have to talk about is the challenges that we're facing going to the trough. And I'm going to hand over here to Daniel to talk more about that.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah, great overview there. And to kind of build on Mark's point that it's sort of inevitable that we're going into the trough of disillusionment, and we're going to ride through that. But something myself, Kat, and Abby talked about as we were sort of creating this webinar is we wanted to dial into a few key areas where our experience can hopefully guide you through some of the challenges. So you'll probably, we as an industry are probably going to hit the trough, right? But we wanted to focus on three things in our careers that are really going to be impactful. So the first one is removing roadblocks for developers. The real challenge as a developer is you want to get your idea, your hypothesis into production, observable business value, testing hypotheses. And my developer career, when I couldn't get that code, that idea into production fast, it slowed everything down. It slowed the learning down, which is key. So we're going to dive into that, removing roadblocks for developers. The second one is codifying and sharing organizational policies. Now, if you want to think about security, observability, reliability at scale, you have to find a way of automating, of codifying a lot of these things and sharing them and automating them. So we're going to look a lot about that, particularly from the security aspect, how you might do that in your organization too. And finally, Abby, I'm going to give you a shout out because you did a fantastic webinar about this a month ago, which I referenced at the end. But for folks that have a platform established, and let's be honest, we've all got a platform. It's whether we're intentionally curating it, but you need to avoid platform decay. We sort of jokingly say in Syntasso sometimes that the platform is like a puppy. It's great when you get it, exciting, right? But then you've got to look after that puppy for it to grow into a full-blown dog and be part of the family, right? You've got to tend, you've got to walk, you've got to feed, and it's kind of similar with a platform. It requires constant nurturing from the technical and from the socio side as well. So it's a socio-technical thing. We're going to look at this from two perspectives. Abby's going to kindly host the conversation. Kat's going to dive into the implementer aspect of these three things, and I'm going to cover the analyst, sort of the big picture view of these three things as well. And there is a rhyme to our logic why we're doing this. So looking at Kat's experience, so Kat has been very much the implementer, building platforms, product manager at Syntasso, but ex-thought worker, a lot of consulting, platform product manager. We're seeing a rise in that title a lot in organizations now, applying product thinking to to building platforms within organizations. Kat's done the business analyst work, and she's also been a developer. So she's got the empathy covered on all angles, and she's going to lean into the implementer learnings today. And myself, similar journey to Kat, let's say perhaps with a more skew towards like analyst kind of learnings. I've been a chief scientist in a previous life at Open Credo, another consultancy, CTO. I've worked with the InfoQ folks for a number of years, looking at trend reports. And it's not quite Gartner, right? We're not quite as thorough in terms of their research methodology, but we do survey our readers at InfoQ. And I've been very lucky to go to all the QCon conferences. And we build these trend reports that talk about diffusion of innovation and what we recommend architects investigate for building their platforms, building their architectures. So I'm also going to lean on my experience there, a little bit of platform engineer, a little bit of developer in my background too.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for that intro. And I really want to lean in right away to that implementer view as we talk about that first challenge that we mentioned, right? So we mentioned the fact that unblocking developers to having is a huge part of having success with platform engineering. And Kat, as a product manager in this space, this must be what you think about all the time. Can you tell me more about your experiences with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, what's the point of building a platform unless you are serving someone? Like what are you building it for if no one's going to be using it? So it's really interesting, this one, because sometimes it's very easy to fall into the trap that you assume you know best. What I found was that we had a lot of developers or people who developed stuff on their own already in the team, so they would just assume that they knew what to build, and that's not the case at all. So figuring out what the actual roadblocks were was really important. And something for me, like product manager, made sense, was getting it in the hand of customers early and quickly, and learning what the actual roadblocks for those teams were was super important. When we were talking about this topic earlier, and I've brought it up at a few, like anytime anyone asks me this question, is like, the first thing you want to do with your platform is to build something new. You want something cool, something shiny. You want to deploy something brand new for the first time. But actually, that's often not the thing that is blocking your engineers day to day. It's not the things they're doing most frequently. What they're doing more frequently is trying to make changes or trying to update things or upgrade things, rather than starting from scratch each time. So what are the roadblocks to that today? What is making that slower? And then you can figure out from there, what should you build? What are the pains you can focus on? And maybe eventually you'll hit building something new.
I like it, Kat. I like it. I mean, the analysts have totally got your back on this one, right? So, like, I was chatting to Sarah Wells yesterday, author, awesome, like leader at used to be at Financial Times, building platforms, and she was talking a lot about Accelerate, Dr. Nicole Forsgren's work, Jean Kim, Jess Humble. She's saying she still presents that work, and people are like, "I've not heard of this. This is fantastic," right? So, like, it was a good reminder. Like, Sarah is like proper top of her game, and I was looking at the Accelerate State of DevOps report 2023, and they're saying 50% of respondents can't deploy any more often than once a week. And I remember back to my developer days, you want to get that code out there, you want to get that feedback, right? So I do think, like, the analysts are saying, developers want to get things in front of folks for sure. And just sort of dialing into your second point as well, Kat, is there's a healthy balance of build it and they will come, or they won't come sometimes, right? But also the big organizations we work with at Syntasso, and they say they do need to provide that proof of value, right? They do need to invest in some notion of a thinnest viable platform. The team topologies folks, Matthew, Manuel, talk a lot about that, to literally attack a pain point, as you said, Kat, like a real pain point. Hey, there's this thinnest viable platform here. Here's the value we can deliver into the organization. So it's like, depending on your org size and where you are, it's a real fine balance of focusing on the goals, but delivering enough that you actually get buy-in from all the stakeholders around you, right?
That's absolutely what we're hearing, some of the people we're working with at Syntasso right now. So one that I thought was super fascinating was they've got like quite a complicated platform for power users. So it serves like 10 to 15% of their organization super, super well. But you have to be very, very technical and really want to understand the nitty gritty and the complexities of things for it to work for you. And that left about 80% of their organization just unserved by the platform, and their life was really, really complicated. It was taking them months and months to get anything from that idea to production, like you were talking about, Daniel. So how do you get those people on board? They're probably a team that has been bitten quite a lot, and that's what they found. Like, it was a real struggle to get any buy-in until they actually had something to show. So focusing on that 80% was much more valuable, and you get much more bang for your buck as well, like helping those people move quickly. And the power users, they've probably built something themselves already that works for them.
Or they're happy to, right? And
yeah,
one of the things that I think is really interesting about trying to help engineers and developers be more effective is thinking about the things that don't come natural to them, right? I think I saw somewhere that they said, AI is getting it all wrong. I don't want AI to help me create my art. I want AI to do the work so that I can have the time to create
do my
art,
washing
right?
up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that leads so well into the second topic we want to talk about here today. So I don't know, Daniel, if you want to start us off here talking about why codification of these business processes is coming up as such a trend across the industry when it comes to kind of organizational policies and things.
Yeah, I'm going to doff my cap to the Harness State of DevX report, Abby, 2024. A really good report. I encourage folks to have a look at it. And a couple of stats I want to pull out. It says 42% of developers say they can't release the code to production without risking failures. And they were talking a lot about security as well, like being vulnerable, which we've all seen high-profile things, kind of scary, right? And they're saying 59% of developers say their AppSec, as in their application security, requirements limit their ability to release code frequently. And as a developer, I kind of get that, right? We've been told to shift left when you think about security, secure supply chain, do our SAST scanning, that kind of stuff. That really made me think, like, if I can't have access to those guidelines, those rules, making it easy for me to do the right thing as a developer, I'm going to be nervous, right? As in, so from the analyst point of view, they're saying, hey, we're hearing from the surveys, developers are caring about security. So mission accomplished, right? Everyone's sort of saying shift left, but they're struggling, like particularly with cognitive load of like, and the responsibility, right? The shoulders weigh heavy. How do I actually implement the good practices I know I should, but keep that speed up as well?
That's absolutely something that we see on the ground as well. Like the number of teams that I've worked with who really want to care about those things. But when you're having to care about security, compliance rules, billing, governance, other architectural components you're integrating with across the organization, it's just a lot of things that you have to think about and learn before you can even get started on one of your projects. And like I've had teams where you have sprint zeros that go on for weeks and weeks and weeks as you just try and understand what those requirements are that you need to build. So that point that you raised, that stat is totally echoed in the practicalities of things as well. Where we've seen a lot of success implementing these things is about codifying those into the platform itself. So actually having a way of those things being written as code in a platform, which means that everyone gets to share in those changes and updates that come, and you do it in one place rather than having each team having to upgrade as you go. One of our customers called it their inner sourcing model. They wanted this inner setting model to have those teams work within the platform. So you've got a security team that wants to update one of their rules. You put it in the platform, you codify it in the platform, and then you know the rest of your organization's compliant. And I think that's going to be a massive step change in the way they work going forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Kat. One of the things about this inner sourcing and these sharings of things is drawing that line of ownership, right? Making sure, Daniel's talking about that we're seeing developers want to own security, but now if you start pulling some things away. So how do you, in your experience, draw those kind of contracts or lines between platform builders and users so that people feel empowered and engaged, but also that responsibility feels managed by the right people?
Yeah. There was another really good quote from one of the people that we were working with that they said it's not about taking away control, it's about scaling your control. So learning from kind of best practices across the organization. I think Kelsey Hightower was talking about silos, and that could be a little bit controversial, but there are always forums to talk about these things. So I had a lot of success with having like security guilds and security forums where you don't have to implement everything, but you can go along and learn. Having your organization have sessions like that and opportunities to learn across the business is really cool, because there will be things that shift left helps, right? Like your devs will pick things up that maybe the platform hasn't, and having that robust safety net is really good. But also knowing that you don't want to put that much cognitive load on your individual team, have that much responsibility on one team. Moving that towards a platform, super helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, plus one. Would you say, like, it's a shout back, even like Jeff Bezos back in the day said, like, Amazon teams within Amazon have to communicate via APIs. That's the only way to do the thing. And like, I think that's what Kelsey was saying with the silos. Like, people got a bit like riled up, like, oh, silos are bad. And I understand that aspect as well. But I think clear boundaries, clear responsibilities, well-defined APIs. Just look back in history, it says it kind of works, right? So I kind of like the idea.
Even in software development, like contract testing, it's a known pattern.
Yeah.
I love finding those patterns between software and platform engineering, because they're both engineering of a product, right? And I think we're trying to recreate the wheel sometimes more than we need to. We can learn from our brethren. But one of the things that we've learned from software, and as we think about putting all these things behind APIs, is that software ages, software decays. It's a natural process. We've talked about it before. But we need to be supporting of that, right? We patch our streets when they get potholes. What can we do around managing and avoiding the detrimental side of platform decay over time? Daniel, I think you talked a lot about this being kind of automated. Is there trends that you're seeing around the industry that are supportive here?
Yeah, for sure, and perfect timing. As we put in this like slideshow together, or this discussion together a couple of weeks ago, the Gartner folks, Bill Blossom and Annie Hodgkins, published a report. It is paywalled, so folks can have a look at the summary. A fantastic report talking about metrics, and this gelled with something we were chatting with customers at Syntasso as well. We were saying to them, establish clear goals and then get a baseline of your metrics and look for improvement. You haven't got to necessarily compare yourself to an org or whatever, because there's a lot of like, hey, my DORA metrics are better than yours kind of vibe, which I think is a bit dangerous right at times. But I really liked what Bill and Annie were leaning into. They were saying like, hey, there's metrics at various levels of the stack. And we just, all of us know from our software engineering days, our leadership days, that clear goals, KPIs, heading towards that. And I would just say, so hopefully you're queuing up some of Kat's thoughts here, but in my experience, and we're seeing from the analyst, there's leading and lagging indicators. So leading indicators, things like adoption rates of the platform, onboarding times. I think Spotify famously talked about with Backstage, it was driving the reducing, I should say, the time to 10th pull request by a new developer that's onboarded onto their platform. And that logically makes sense to me. Like my time, so I'm delivering value to customers. Let's keep that nice and small, right? And then the lagging indicators, and something Kat and you and I have chatted about this a bunch, but it's sort of proving value to the business, right? Like things like app retention rates, like all the versions of my app are kind of going on the platform. They're not sort of going on to shadow IT, like spinning up Vercel, spinning up a Lambda over here, right? People are actually using the platform. And I think even like looking at things like incident rate, near misses, and where the platform saved you, like that can be like a dollar amount sometimes, right? Hey, the platform cost me $1 million to build, but there was an outage we could have had, which we avoided with the platform, that could have cost us 20 million, right? So like having that and feeding that up to your leadership team, super valuable. Same with time saved with ROI, right? As in, hey, it used to take us 11 months. We've had customers like this, right? 11 months to spin up an environment. Now I can embed an environment within like seconds or minutes and like track that dollar amount. And then when your leadership team are saying, hey, this platform might be a bit expensive, why are you focusing on this and not business value? You're like, it actually is business value because here's the stuff we've missed. Here's the value we've added, right?
Yeah, I can only like plus one massively to everything Daniel said there. Like, please listen to your analysts, because I have to put my hand up here. I've been very, very guilty of both ends of this spectrum, where I've deprioritized or not measured anything or near enough anything, and then also tried to measure everything on the other side and absolutely death by numbers when nothing matters. If you measure nothing, you know nothing. If you measure everything, you also know nothing, because there's so many things that you're trying to track at once. Like, how do you prioritize which one is right for your business? So where I've probably been the worst culprit of causing platform decay is when both of those things have happened. So if you don't measure anything, you can't see the decay happening. You don't know that people aren't using things if you're not tracking how many people are using your platform. You don't know what bits are valuable to people because you're not tracking it. You don't know how much you're saving the business because you're not tracking how much faster it is to do things. So all of the things that Daniel said, brilliant. And then also, like, number one advice is look to the analysts. So why I ended up measuring too much was because I tried to figure out each of those things on my own. So you measure loads of stuff and you're like, I'll track and keep track of the ones that I find most useful. Why waste your time, right? Like, other people have done this thinking for you. Make the most of that thinking rather than trying to go back to first principles. As much as I love first principles, sometimes you can make the use of other people's knowledge instead.
Totally.
Absolutely. I think measuring, one of the big things here is not just measuring small parts of like a feature within your platform, but it's that more general return on investment that you need to also be tracking. And I think we did talk about that a little bit when talking about platform decay last time, right, Daniel?
We did.
So, yeah.
Abby, yeah, and those are queuing you up perfectly. I guess should we do a shout out to your presentation? I think we've got a slide shouting that one out, Abby, right? Because I really enjoyed that talk, and we sort of very much dived into 3 specific areas of platform decay. So lack of adoption, which Kat sort of mentioned as well, and I've mentioned poor or ROI, if I can say that properly, poor return on investments, and never-ending migrations. Like we definitely we went deep on those, Abby, right? In terms of like exploring them, relating it, back to the trough of disillusionment. Hey, we are going to go through those challenges as an industry, as an organization, for sure, right? But if you sort of, like to Kat's point, look at what's already out there, like we're all going to make mistakes, but I like to make new mistakes rather than like mistakes that someone else has already made, right? Like, that I can sort of like learn from. And I think you framed it perfectly in that talk, Abby, where you gave some hints of how to identify decay and then how to sort of ride it out to that, productivity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd love, for more feedback around that. We've heard a lot of really good discussion, and definitely can continue to that conversation. My internet may be a little bit laggy, so if that's happening, if Daniel or Kat wants to jump in, but I do just want to do a little bit of a wrap up of all the awesome things we've talked about here today, and talk about again, reiterating the fact that we are talking about platform engineering entering this trough of disillusionment because we are seeing that come through from Gartner. We're seeing that all software enters a trough of disillusionment after getting that hype, excitement of its potential. That is the sign of it being effective as a technique, as an opportunity, is that it is something that we have to kind of work through and get to that plateau of productivity. There are some key challenges that, from our experience, if we can kind of focus on these and really deliver on them, we will easily see ourselves through this trough, specifically making sure to focus on our users. So removing those roadblocks for developers as a key requirement. Then also making sure to continue to see our other users or other outcomes and stakeholders being the business, and making sure to codify the key organizational policies and expectations so they can be shared across everyone in the platform and the organization, and avoiding that decay. As this platform initiative grows, it's going to be more and more software. And when we're building it in a sustainable way, we'll be able to get value for years to come without that feeling of needing to rewrite the platform, which is obviously going to take a hit on any return on investment that you might have. In order to try and support these three challenges, thinking about your platform like any other product is a key part. And really dialing in on the fact that a platform provides things as a service, just like the APIs of cloud providers or anything else. It gives people on-demand access to the things they need. It also allows for the automation and standardization of your processes. There will always be a need for human intervention at times, often because of regulation expectations and things. But how do you build that in transparently and have that automation built in is key. And thinking about your platform as not just building it, but also supporting it. So fleet managing the ongoing costs of any of the capabilities on your platform is key to ongoing long-term success for your platform and platform engineering in general. So thank you all for taking the time to hang out with us here. We've got a couple questions, but please do add some more in. We've got enough time to get to a good handful here. And here's a few blogs in the meantime that you may find interesting if this topic resonates with you. But while getting some of these questions in, I think one of the things I'm hearing as I'm asking these questions that I want to put you two on the spot a little bit about is the fact that there is a known pattern to software cycles, right? That there's this hype and then there's this trough and then this plateau of productivity. And we've seen it before in all sorts of areas. How do we how long can we expect a trough to last? And what are maybe some indicators that we would be starting to come to the other side? When do we get to do our webinar about being past the trough of disillusionment with platform engineering?
Yeah, shall I start with that one? Then Kat, you sort of follow on. I think it's a great question, Abby. And like, I've seen a few like microservices. I remember particularly like as a developer, sort of as an architect, and then we definitely Gartner said, "Hey, peak of expectations," and it certainly was. I remember everyone was like bringing us in as consultants, do microservices, and then it took a couple of years, to be honest. Right? We started seeing. I remember famously Segment came along and said, "Hey, we're not doing microservices. We rewound this stuff." And recently we had AWS sort of saying the same thing, and it's nuanced. If you actually look into the sort of the stories behind some of these things, it is nuanced. But we're looking from, I think, from the analyst perspective, probably on the order of like months and years, if that makes sense. And typically you see things like, I mean, again, the Gartner Hype Cycle pages are fantastic. I encourage folks to read them, but they talk a lot about second and third gen products appearing. And we are starting to see that with platforms now. It's not just like portals. It's not just infrastructure as code tools. We are seeing platform orchestrators. We are seeing a bunch of other tools in this space, second and third gen tooling. And like, fingers crossed, like say, we're going to see a lot more success stories. We're going to see some failures, as Mark's flagged in his comment. And I think we haven't gone through that yet. But when we start seeing more successes, hey, here's how I'm looking at orchestrating my platform, treating it like a product. Here's my APIs, here's my lifecycle management, and we're getting those on blogs, getting those on conference talks. I think we'll all be like, a mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, and on the ground, you can really feel it depending on the goals that you set yourself from and the goals you get from leadership. So when you first start with platform, everyone's like very starry-eyed and excited about what it could achieve and how much money it's going to save you and all of these things. And you inevitably fail because those goals are far too lofty and no one's really lived it before. Coming out of those feels like you're just able to set those realistic goals a lot better, and leadership have got a bit more buy-in to the platform and to product thinking and understand the value it can deliver. So it's sort of a gut feel on the ground and a much more like ability to meet those goals and level setting, both from top down in the business and bottom up from your users.
Yeah, it seems to have triggered a question here from Somya about how to manage those comms. She asks about what are your techniques for actually pushing information back up to leadership about what you're measuring in your platform in order to have that impact.
So I had a really, really good project, and it was for a crypto bank. So really important that the communication was good and high quality, because everything was really moving fast in that area, but it was still regulated in a tightly constrained domain. The thing that we found most useful, there were these, I think it was quarterly or maybe once, like twice a year, management status updates. And we managed to essentially force our way into the room. And then we also made sure that all of our metrics on the platform aligned up somehow. So they were really excited about integrating a bunch of different new payment methods called payment rails. But the teams couldn't do that very quickly because there was no cohesive platform and they had to build everything themselves. So we were like, right, well, we're going to make sure that we make that a really smooth journey and work as fast as possible. And then they could directly see, oh, we've got this initiative that I am really excited about, and it's directly happened because the platform was so good. Brilliant, buy-in. And we had that forum where they had this huge initiative they were really excited about. So force your way in by attaching yourself to something that leadership are really excited about. That's worked great for me.
Yeah, +1 Cat. Show and tells for me, same deal, right? As in, I've often done. I remember worked for Not on the High Street. It's like a two-sided marketplace, and the show and tells like of technology got so exciting that the leadership were hearing about it and going, "What are these folks talking about every Friday?" Right? And then we come along and we snuck in little metrics saying, "Hey, here's how the platform's working," right? And they were like, "Ah," so that's the more of the kind of bottom-up groundswell, but with an eye to getting like busy leadership teams at sort of like mid-market size company, right? Getting them looking in. They were going, "Hey, there's lots of buzz going on. What's in it for me?" I often talk about Withams, what's in it for me? And they were coming along, seeing cool tech demos, but also being, to your point, like subtly fed, "Hey, here's some metrics that we're making a difference here," right?
And I think I, for one, am grateful for everything you've shared from that analyst point of view, Daniel, about where this is all coming from around the industry. Often when I'm in my own organization, I've lost some focus on, is it just my problem? Am I the only one failing here? And seeing these numbers are really helpful for getting buy-in to invest and that kind of thing. So I think being able to get these two perspectives from that analyst view and the implementer view together has been a really valuable way to challenge and the ideas of this trough of disillusionment and how we can get through there successfully and as an entire industry. So I thank you both for all of your time, and to all of you that have tuned into this. I really appreciate you coming along and bringing your questions. We haven't gotten to all of them, so those that we haven't, we'll make sure to get some posts out on our socials on LinkedIn and Twitter and things to answer. And we do have a Slack that you're welcome to join, and we'll try and put them there as well, just to make sure that we don't leave anyone hanging on their questions. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been lovely.